Hi, my name is Father Victor Moratin. I've been in the religious life since February of 2011 when I entered the Fathers of Mercy. Before I was in the religious life, before I joined the Fathers of Mercy, I was doing a lot of different things. I was working, I was going to school. I worked a couple of years at UPS, being a supervisor inside of a hub. I was also going to school. I was trying to finish a degree in engineering because I felt like at the time when I first started those studies, that's what God wanted for me. And then things kind of changed, obviously. So the first time I ever felt drawn to the priesthood was probably when I was a kid as an altar server. But I remember feeling like, yeah, that would be cool to be a priest. And I remember my first immediate thought was, but priests don't get married, so there's the end of that. However, obviously things change and you develop a relationship with God and you feel like you need to do what He asks of you. You have to turn yourself over to His will and not your will. So in terms of how I was attracted to the Fathers of Mercy, I was watching EWTN and it was Lent, and Father Bill Casey's, one of his missions was broadcast, I guess. And I remember being very struck by him, fire and brimstone. I was kind of on fire with my faith at the time, and I'm like, wow, this is really great, and thinking, who are these guys? And I remember at the very end, it just said Fathers of Mercy, South Union, Kentucky. And being from the East Coast, I'm like, South Union, Kentucky, where is that? I thought, there are parts of Kentucky that are probably close to the East Coast or something, Virginia, it's attached to Virginia. And I remember that when I Googled South Union, Kentucky on Google Maps, I had to zoom out like 4 times just to figure out where the heck it was in Kentucky. And it's like all the way on the west part. And I'm like, that's a little too far for me. But with prayer and things, God leads you. And I came for a visit and I felt at home, and I decided to join. What do I love the most about my religious priesthood? I would say everything. Prayer, offering the Holy Mass every day, hearing confessions. One of the things that I think as a priest is very important to help people come to know the Lord is to, as Jesus says, you are not my servant, you are my friends. And I think that you develop good friendships with people, and that helps the priest to be someone that a person can confide in, who they might ask, like, how do I get closer to the Lord, or how can I hear the voice of God in my life? And I think as a priest, it's very important to lead in that kind of a way, being a merciful father, as we are all Fathers of Mercy. In terms of advice for someone discerning a vocation of the priesthood, I think the most important thing is to pray, to grow in your relationship with Jesus Christ, with our Blessed Mother, to stay close to the sacraments of confession, of adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. All these things are so important for us to grow in prayer, because through that growth in the spiritual life is how we hear God's voice, and how we hear, and how we learn where it is that He's leading us. So I think the most important thing is to pray. And, if you have good spiritual friends, people who can kind of put some good things in your ear, because I remember in my call, there were some people who were good friends of mine, and they were very spiritual people, and they kind of started nudging me when I wasn't exactly ready to hear the voice of God calling me to the priesthood. So what attracted me to the Fathers of Mercy? I spoke a little bit about Father Bill's mission, and I felt like that was a really good way to proclaim the gospel and proclaim Jesus Christ, is to travel, to preach about the faith, our Catholic faith, things that, might not be heard all the time at your parish, but are still so important for how we live as Catholics, to call people to confession, to conversion of life. And I felt like the Fathers of Mercy were spending so much of their energy, because that's their apostolate, in being a missionary and drawing people who might be away from the Lord, or people who might not have good catechesis growing up, or whatever it might be, and people who don't know what Catholicism is all about, that we're called to go and plant those seeds and bring people to get to know the Word of God, Jesus Christ. So if you're If you feel like this apostolate might be something for you, being a traveling missionary, bringing the Word of God to people, bringing them back to the Lord, being a merciful Father, I would say, please consider us and be open to the path that God might be leading you on in terms of holiness, and also to the apostolate of the Fathers of Mercy.